Welcome to That Japanese Thing. Today we're talking about Godzilla Minus One. We've finally seen it, because it came out like 3 weeks after it did everywhere else in the world here. But we saw it. My name's Chris. This is our Godzilla review. Welcome Dylan, welcome Yash. How you guys doing?
Hello.
Hello.
Good.
Good.
Feels like a sauna where I am right now. But other than that, pretty good. Can't complain. So yeah, we saw this a few days ago. Yash, you saw this like hours ago at this point?
Yes, pretty much hours ago, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to see it as soon as it came out. It came out in the US on the 1st, came out in Japan on the 3rd, and then for some reason it just wasn't out here until the 15th. So, we saw it when we could. I kind of wonder why that is. I guess it's not an American film, so probably like the marketing team wasn't pestering people to get it into cinemas and that sort of thing. No? I'm wrong? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be. I don't know.
I felt like it was pretty marketed here.
Yeah,
I saw
so-
adverts for it and stuff like that.
I think, well, I mean, it came out first in America, so that makes sense. And it did really, really well. I think it's the highest grossing foreign film in the US of all time at this point. And it was in like 50 IMAX theaters, 2,000 normal screenings. That's like almost like a normal kind of release for a moderate-sized American film.
Mm-hmm.
How much?
With the language being specifically Japanese, not a dub or anything like that as well.
Correct.
Quite significant.
But yeah, the reason I say like the rest of the world kind of seems like they didn't try very hard to get it into other theaters around the world. So obviously, South Africa is no one's priority. It's more than expected, I suppose, that we even got to see it, I guess. But it's released in very few countries. Other than Japan, there's only Australia, New Zealand, Spain, Norway, Italy, Germany, Netherlands, and the UK. And only the UK and Australia have significant amounts of people watching the film in there, and it's not even really that much. But in Japan and the United States, it's done over $30 million, 37 in the US and 31 in Japan, which I think...
I am going to say,
Yeah.
I suspect a fair amount of why it's doing so well in the US is because of YouTube and Twitch reviewers.
Yeah, I
We're
found...
no
yeah.
longer relying on magazines per se. I got hyped for this movie mostly because, I say I see adverts, but like whenever I see a TV advert for a movie, I ignore it. I don't really pay attention to them. But the people that I watch who watch movies were talking about this, and that got me.
Yeah,
into the theater
some
scene.
comic book podcast I follow. They were talking about this. So that's the first I heard of it, actually. But just on the box office numbers, it cost something like less than $15 million to make. I can't find the amount of yen it took them to make, but it says less than $15 million. And like, we weren't aware of it, so like the marketing budget was probably pretty minuscule as well. So this is one of the more profitable films ever made in Japan at this point, and it's not done making money yet. It's one of those films that has like quite a bit of staying power. It seems it's been like #1 in Japan for several weekends at this point, and also did really well in the US. I'm sure like a lot of theaters are wishing they had just had a screening open in theaters that didn't. It only opened at like maybe 40% of theaters in the US. So yeah, crazy good performance for this Japanese film. Now, how the heck did they pull this off with $15 million?
I will say that if you actually look at the CG in the scenes where there's significant CG, it is relatively cheap CG, like TV show quality stuff. But they disguise it really well with water effects, distance, darkness, lots of movement shots. They did a fantastic job of using tricks, effectively, to lower costs. Also, the majority of the action scenes in this, if you actually look at them like closely,
Yes.
the number of human actors per scene is like 6 for the most part, despite it having like giant
Yeah,
CG shots and stuff.
except on the ships, right? And then there was that huge Ginza
even
scene
on the
as well,
ships,
right? So there was a street,
even-
and there was that scene where they were all packed onto that big ship. Other than that, it's mostly just in a house, right?
So even in the Ginza scene, if you actually look at it, there's a background audience and a foreground, not audience, sorry, background crowd and a foreground crowd. So they literally could have gotten the same people to play the background people because the background crowd was superimposed on the back behind what the action that was happening in the foreground during that scene.
Yeah. No. I mean, I'm sure. But they probably wasn't like they probably didn't pay extras to be in those scenes. That's kind of what I'm thinking. It's probably, hey, who wants to come and be extra in a Godzilla film? That sort of thing, right? You're right. The boats, the destroyers that they were using, kind of looked pretty cheap CGI wise at some points. But it didn't really. At some points, you just didn't notice it. I think they were actually on like an old World War II ship for like their close-up scenes, so it looked pretty realistic from that regard.
Well, at the minimum, they got models, 3D models for ships. Because when they were doing the far out shots where you got to see the entire ship moving, I saw some of the CG floatiness on one or two of them.
Yeah.
So some of their distance shots were definitely full
and
CG.
when
But...
Nami, what's the character's name?
Oishi. Her
Oishi.
name is Noriko Oishi.
Right. When she's hanging from the train, you can definitely tell it's just like a complete green screen kind of. It had almost a weird like YouTube kind of CGI vibe about that scene. But you know,
I will say, because of the pacing and the action that's happening and the time they spent developing characters, you kind of hand wave it away because you want to find out what's happening to the character you're watching.
Yeah.
As the audience member, you kind of ignore it because you're enjoying yourself.
Okay.
I think that's
like
the best review of this movie I could get.
Slight spoiler, just with that scene in particular. Like she's in a train like that's being destroyed by Godzilla, and like she sees like it go over the sea, over some water, and she's like, okay, this is my best chance, like go. There was no stupid like Hollywood moment of like summoning the will to do something, or just screaming for no reason, right?
Yeah.
Like instincts have kicked in. This is effective. Done. And we don't dwell on it. We just see her like a 2 or 3 scenes later, wet and like running down a road.
It was
good
very well
direction.
done on a like human scale, believable scale kind of thing.
Okay. So it looked amazing. I mean, if someone had said this had cost like $50 million, I would be like, yeah, sure, that seems right. If someone said this cost $100 million, I'm like, I'm not sure. Maybe that's going a bit too much. But like 15, I don't understand. I mean, I know we said like the CGI is not great and everything, and from reading some articles, it seems like this guy, they filmed their stuff that took a few months, and then they went back to their studio, and I think it was just like 10 people doing the special effects for about a year. So I guess that's not a huge crew or anything. And they achieved a lot there, so that's why it costs so little. But it's kind of crazy that you can destroy Ginza for that amount of money, isn't it?
The entire city built and then stamped on. Yeah, it's crazy.
I wonder if they didn't film in Tokyo, obviously, but
No, they had a studio, obviously.
They filmed somewhere in Kanto, and then somewhere in Chofu. So maybe there's like a recreation area of like old Japan somewhere that they used for those shots, the outside shots at least. But okay, enough of that. Why this? So I was saying to Dylan as soon as we came up, this is probably the best Godzilla film that I've ever seen, and I haven't seen like all of them, but I've seen most of the newer ones at least, and the original. It's certainly the best. It's certainly better than any of the American Godzilla films.
It's definitely better than any of the American ones.
And like I don't want to say that in terms of like quality of like cinematography, because those are big budget movies and they had a lot of money poured into them. But this one didn't look much worse than any of those, and it had the right kind of like mental space for a Godzilla film to happen in. There was no portraying Godzilla as like the savior in this. This was just like
even something that you should feel sorry for.
Yeah, I mean, I loved the best Godzilla scene in this for me was that opening scene on the island where he kind of looked like just like a large dinosaur.
I was about to say it looks like a teenager Godzilla. It was a lot smaller, a little bit
Acne.
more believable, and then it just comes out and kicks a hissy fit. That's what it's doing on the ground.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, but he looked. That must have been like entirely CG, I think, or very good models at least there. And the way he just kind of like does a lot of casual murder, and like the expression on his face is kind of like he's just kind of enjoying himself most of the time, right?
He's just an angry boy.
And they don't even like make it like it's about like hunting for him, because he doesn't eat any of the people he bites or kills. Just sometimes he rips them off, sometimes he just throws them about, but they find all the bodies afterwards, and then he just retreats back into the sea as if he's just like playing, and I guess that's what he was doing. They
At one
yeah,
point, Doc said that he now counts Tokyo as part of his territory.
yeah.
Hmm.
Which I guess that happens. Okay, so Godzilla is initially like a moderate-sized monster, but something that probably could be dealt with relatively easily. If people, I mean, especially with like military like hardware, right? Like it wouldn't be super threatening to Tokyo. And then it's implied in this, and I guess like they didn't really have the budget to like show this happening, but they show the nuclear tests on Bikini
At
Atoll.
Bikini Atoll.
And then you hear Godzilla scream as the explosion goes off. So thereafter, we get the giant nuclear-powered Godzilla who's capable of actually harassing Tokyo. More than harassing Tokyo, literally destroying huge sections of it. But before we go into spoilers too much, I'm going to give this like an 8 out of 10, I think. Definitely watch. Best Godzilla film I've ever seen. Yes?
For me, this is about an 8 out of 10 as well. I will
okay.
agree with that. I consider this a pretty solid movie. The story was great. And then also, it feels like they pared down everything extra and gave us a story about the horror of Godzilla. Like, this feels more horror Godzilla than action Godzilla. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
for me, this is an 8 out of 10.
What do you think, Tom?
Nice. I think it's a good movie. Like we were saying, I think it is also probably the best Godzilla that I've seen. I'm not sure if it's the best kaiju movie that I've seen, but definitely the best Godzilla. I do prefer the style of what Yesh mentioned. It's less action and more sort of outright devastation. All the cinematography that I could pick up was sort of almost from like an observer standpoint, rather than those like fast moving cams that you get with action shots. So when it's busy leveling the city, it'll pop you in a place to get the full effect of whatever they're trying to convey.
Okay, and everything from here on out is spoilers. So there's never a moment, right, with the cinematography where you have hero cam. Like there's never a moment where there's like a human in control of the situation completely.
I will say when Koichi is flying the plane and he's doing the leading Godzilla out into the water thing.
Yes.
And then also later on when everything goes wrong and Koichi comes back, it definitely feels like in those two scenes at minimum, just specifically those two scenes though. Koichi, maybe he's mastering his own life. Maybe that's what it was supposed to imply. But it definitely felt like he was more in control of Godzilla than Godzilla was in control of him.
Well, that's supposed to be a tonal shift, right?
I guess
Yes.
so. But
And also
even,
our character growth.
But even in those scenes where he's flying the super Japanese secret stealth plane, whatever it was,
Tail wing.
like Godzilla almost sorts him out the air a couple of times, and like he even reacts to that. So it never feels comfortable like it does in like a Hollywood Godzilla. Where,
Oh, certainly not comfortable now.
Yeah, it doesn't feel risk-free.
And there wasn't like a ridiculous amount of devastation. You never got the idea that like Godzilla could necessarily destroy the whole world. Although it's difficult to imagine like what could really deal with him if he got any
After
bigger.
the initial city attack, he did his heat beam, and like they showed the devastation as literally so significant that everyone had given up on life.
Yeah,
The people that witnessed
30,000
it were done.
30,000 people. I think that's like a reference to the atom bombs that were dropped. That's a similar amount of dead. But this time it was
I
over
mean, they
Tokyo.
even showed us a mushroom cloud. So.
Yeah, and it was radioactive, obviously. How did you feel about his like power-up tail thing? I thought that looked a little bit like, oh, that's going to be a really cool toy that they're making.
It does look like a cool toy.
I mean,
think
the
to give
color
us a
even like
significant-
suits the kind of plastic that they'd use for that.
I think they wanted to give us a significant power-up scene so that the audience could get hyped or experience growing terror, either one of the two. But I definitely felt like they did it for some pomp and circumstance, to give us like a chance to get excited for what's going to happen. So
the director,
so
yeah. So the director said he took inspiration from two films in particular. Like the obvious one is the 1954. Is it 54 Godzilla film? And like you could tell, like they revamped like the score for certain scenes. We got the Godzilla Rampage music going.
There are lots of homages.
He incorporated bubbles somehow into the
Yeah,
script.
yeah.
I was gonna say the oxygen destroyer makes its return.
Right. Carbon dioxide this time or something? Nitrogen? I
It's
can't remember.
Freon.
Freon.
Yeah.
Literally the stuff that created the hole in
Destroying the ozone
ozone
layer. Yeah. So maybe that's the next monster comes through the hole. Can you guess which other film? It's a monster film as well.
I feel like Alien.
No. No, it's a famous American director. The film's from 1975. He's known for directing a famous friendly alien on a bicycle film.
So I know who, but
No, okay.
75.
Jaws.
But a mar-
Jaws.
Jaws.
Jaws,
Yeah,
Jaws.
there we go.
So hence all the naval references.
No, in particular, the small wooden boat with
Yeah.
the Godzilla following it, firing explosive canisters
and
into its
and
mouth.
the back of it, and the back of it gets wrecked.
Yeah, yeah. It's exactly like scene for scene, except with mines instead of oxygen tanks.
Okay.
And obviously Godzilla is there, which is slightly more
That makes-
threatening than a giant shark.
That makes a lot of sense why they're trying to destroy mines by shooting them out. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it would probably work. I don't know how those mines are made, but yeah, you can forgive that.
The pressure sensors are a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's a movie. We're willing to handwave some stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not raising it as a problem. I was just
No.
saying that
I
that's
know
why.
you're not.
Yeah. If it's from
Um,
the Jaws scenes.
Yeah, and like that's why we got some of those like characters there as well. Especially like the guy in the life jacket, with the cap and whatnot. It's meant to even look like the captain of the boat.
Yeah.
And then there's like a weird like PTSD thing that happens throughout this. I would call it the A plot, but it's
PTSD.
actually the B plot. I think really when you consider. I think Godzilla must be the A plot in the Godzilla movie. The main
Yeah.
He's
character,
certainly front and center.
Koichi Shikishima.
Fukushima.
Shikishima.
Is a coward, right? Because he was a kamikaze pilot and he didn't kill himself. He instead pretended his plane was damaged and landed on Oka Island.
I will say the movie does go out of its way to try and excuse him for that a little bit in the beginning, at least.
Yeah,
Presenting us with an external character saying, "We've already lost this war. To throw away your life for a losing war is kind of pointless. At least I side with you."
yeah, absolutely. Like, obviously, I mean, one imagines that sort of thing probably happened quite a lot in real life towards the end of the war.
And
But-
his fear and the self-disgust are so believable that I kind of like.
Yeah, so, I mean, people always remark that Japanese people are basically atheist, but they're very superstitious at the same time. So he has this weird kind of almost uniquely like Japanese guilt about not killing himself, and he kind of feels like there's like some kind of karmic influence over his life that he needs to equalize in order for things to be okay again. So obviously what causes that is he's in his plane when the small teenage Godzilla, as Yash puts it, is coming up onto Oka Island and is going towards the repair crew. And he has like a chance where he's literally in his cockpit of his plane and he can shoot at the head of Godzilla. I don't know if that would have done anything
I
necessarily.
think it's fairly strongly implied that Godzilla would recover from that because the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
shots all healed in front of us. So.
Or did the nuclear blast give him
Yeah.
regeneration
Yeah.
powers, right? But I mean, it's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
reasonable. Obviously, like you wouldn't want to piss off giant super T-Rex monster.
Yeah,
if you
also,
were
I mean, you've
within
got no way
draw
of-
range of him.
You've got no way of aiming that thing, unless it's gonna, it's like. In
I
terms
mean,
of, like,
it was
big
directly in
game
front
theory.
of it, right? So I mean, it would have hit. For
They,
sure.
they did show us the pips specifically being on his head.
Yeah.
Mm.
Even
at
at
one
his
moment.
eye level.
Because
yeah.
the holographic thing was
Yeah.
not visible for most of that, but then
The-
there was a moment where it
Pips
was
that
and it
are
was
like
on him.
sighted in for 100 meters. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were sighted in wrong. But I mean, also you can argue then that Godzilla is such a large target that at 1 meter out,
So
it's gonna hit something.
have you seen the poster for Godzilla? Yeah, the Japanese poster. It's
didn't
got
see the
that. It's got
Japanese
a
one, I saw the
G,
American.
and then it's like got
Yeah.
a -1.
-1.
0.0. I kind of that 0.0 thing. I kind of it's almost like the symbol for the plane that he was in.
The zero, yeah.
0. Because I mean, like, why would you put 1.0 on this thing and then like the text literally just says -1, right?
Yeah, I mean both the G and the 0 for me are like very reminiscent of like an N, so it's obviously like calligraphy style writing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't want to read too much into that. But,
No, that's what we're here for.
yeah.
Like the director of the film is very wishy-washy about things as well. So he's really enjoying the fact that people are interpreting it.
Okay, good.
And so everyone's asking, okay, so obviously we see at the end the cells of Godzilla regenerating under the water, and people are asking, okay, so when is the sequel coming out? Which I'm sure he doesn't want to hear, like just after finishing this, like a month ago. But what do you think? Would you want another one?
I wouldn't want one fast. I definitely think this should be a
Yeah.
3 to 5 year kind of thing.
Wouldn't want one fast or rushed.
I mean, okay, you might not get one, but I imagine like a dump truck full of dollar bills is gonna rock up in front of his house at some point.
Yes,
Because of
yes.
this. But he said he thinks it's nicer if we don't revisit the characters, because then they get to live in everyone's imagination happily for a while.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I love how not like blockbustery this blockbuster feels. What did you think about the various like female characters? The wife character Oishi and the widow
Sumiko.
Yeah.
Sumiko.
So
I felt like it was a little bit funny that her name is Oishi, because Oishi means tasty, by the way. And it's a Godzilla movie. So I anticipate some bad things happening. I tried not to get attached to Noriko. But Noriko effectively comes in and provides us with our partner role within the movie. She brings a girl along with her that's not her daughter, but that she has effectively adopted. Akiko, I think it is.
Ikiko, yeah.
Yeah,
what it says on the
and they
thing.
form the family unit for our boy Koichi on his return, since his entire family has been wiped out. And I felt like it was trying to show us what post-war life was like in Japan to a certain extent, where everyone had to close ranks, and sort of like the situation was so terrible that families formed out of despair, effectively.
Yeah.
I think it did a fantastic job of giving us these characters, telling us about them, and making us like them. One concern that specifically Dylan had, but I think both of you to some extent had, was that I was going to come back super negative about this movie, because I don't enjoy characters with too significant flaws that experience no growth. And Koichi, in particular, is relatively flawed because his cowardice is a strong actor in his emotional subset, and it makes him act really dumb sometimes.
Well, it's more. I think it's more that I think he would have gotten annoyed with the fact that he didn't just accept where he was post war and then just get on with things, and just kept kind of going through
thing
the
is,
cycle.
I don't mind flaws if the movie uses them or if the movie grows through them. And our boy Koichi definitely grows, in particular because he can't support himself plus 2 other people, with his original plan to mope about and be useless. So he actually changes because of Noriko and Akiko. And because they like have needs and he cares, he starts going out to do risky work. He starts going out and forcing himself to get things done. And to some extent, maybe he's punishing himself by going and doing risky work in particular. But it feels like his flaws are being forced to be removed or at least be adapted to, so that he can support his family.
Yeah,
On the
also,
other side of the coin,
doesn't it feel like he just
sorry,
would
yes.
have like offed himself at some point if he didn't have?
he would have
the
wallowed in
characters.
grief and then effectively killed himself. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
I think it also shows like a maybe a little bit of a nuance to his character in that there's a difference between not wanting to die, right, and being a coward. There's a difference between being afraid and being a coward. And he's constantly labeled as a coward for not just ending his life as a kamikaze pilot, right?
Really only once though, huh?
That's
the-
throughout the movie.
I mean, the young guy brings it up once, and then Sumi, is it Sumiko?
The engineer, then Sumiko, but then the engineer also comes back with it.
It's happened multiple times throughout the.
But like the engineer
Every time-
doesn't make a big deal out of it. It's really only the young kid.
Beats
that
his
kind of-
face off and hands him the pictures of the other dead people.
That's not the engineer.
Saying it should have been-
That's-
Don't worry.
Oh,
about
you mean
the
the technician? Like the okay, right.
Technician, yeah, sorry, yeah. But
So Noda
Tachibana.
is the engineer I'm thinking of, the professor dude.
No, I'm talking about Tatsuya.
Tachibana.
Tachibana, there we go. Tachibana.
The mechanic.
I'm more talking about Tachibana.
Absolutely.
who
I mean,
twice in the
look,
movie does it.
Tachibana has some issues, obviously, because of the
Well,
whole
that's
Godzilla
the same
thing.
issues I believe Sumiko has.
Yeah.
Because they're all experiencing grief, and they need. You can't blame an atom bomb. You can't blame a giant lizard
Absolutely.
that rocks up and vanishes.
But you can
so
blame the pilot.
they blame Koichi.
What I liked
and you can-
about
Feel that it's unfair. Yes.
Sumiko is like the way he kind of initially just reacted. He kind of just like took all the words, right? And he didn't say anything because there is nothing you can say at that point. And like they never address it directly with words, but you know, at some point it's kind of like she is like the grandmother in their new family, effectively.
Absolutely.
And no
she
one ever
deals
needs
with
to
her grief.
apologize because everyone understands how angry and like depressed everyone was at that point.
I also think it was trying to show the post-war Japan, that everyone closed ranks, even if they didn't like each other, even if there was anger. People just made life work. Even Sumiko, who initially was going to be negative about stuff, couldn't leave a baby to starve. She gave up her white rice. She gave up
Yes.
her time, etc., etc.
The
So we turned
Japanese
this character
spirit
from
coming
this
through there.
basically spirit of hatred and vengeance next door to our main character into this soft motherly figure that cares so much.
Yeah.
And I think I really think they did character growth really well in this movie. I actually cared about the characters, which I know this is going to sound so stupid, but I don't appreciate characters in Hollywood movies so much anymore. To a greater extent, I tend towards just watching a movie and then forgetting about everyone. But in this one, I actually felt like I went on a
so,
ride,
I mean,
and
the
I
only-
appreciate these characters.
I've only seen like maybe 3 Hollywood movies this year, and I only liked one of them. But usually it's just like they have like a cool action piece, and you kind of just have to enjoy that. But there's usually not much more to it than that at this point, with the big ones anyway. So Dylan thought, for you, Yash, that obviously Koichi would piss you off, which you didn't. My thought was that not Noda's personality per se, but his plan would annoy you a bit.
Notice plan. Well, I will admit that I hand-waved his plan a tiny bit. I did feel like it was really dumb because he was portrayed as like this scientific, intelligent character with like a more engineering-y kind of background. I loved him in most of the scenes he was in. But when he was pitching the plan to sink Godzilla down to the bottom because the pressure would crush it, it was like no one brought up that Godzilla comes up with the deep sea fish.
Yes.
So he comes from the
Yeah.
deep. So I was like, have we tested any of this? But his idea that Godzilla has lots of surface area and down at the bottom of the trench, there'll be a lot of pressure. Like, from a scientific standpoint, as like hand-wavy science, I kind of agree. Like, that sounds really rough. That sounds like something that would kill a big thing.
I mean, yeah.
And then when Godzilla went down to the bottom and was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do from here, but I'm really angry now. I was like, that makes sense.
Essentially, they dropped him like 1.5 kilometers down onto the ocean floor, and then they threw him up like 1.5 kilometers. I mean,
When he
that
was
would
coming
kill
up
most
too
things.
fast.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. The coming up too fast part was actually brilliant because they showed that his skin was coming apart.
Yes.
And then
And when
he destroyed the balloons and forced himself to not come up as fast. So I thought that was great. And then they did something that actually made me feel bad about Star Wars. And I'm sorry to bring up Star Wars. But there was a moment in time where the ships didn't have enough engine power to force Godzilla to continue rising at the rapid rate. I think it was about 800 meters down still, which is still incredible depth.
Yep.
And then everybody else in the movie just shows up in ships, ties their ships together, and forces Godzilla to come up via tug pulling, effectively.
Yeah.
Now that wouldn't work because we passed the structural limit of the cranes. But if you brainwave off, if you just brain off for a little bit,
you just let some stuff go.
You just let some stuff go. That felt a lot like the Lando scene for me because I don't know if you know what I'm talking. What scene I'm talking about?
I do. Where he brings every fucking
He
ship
brings
in
everyone
the entire
else
universe.
out of nowhere because we kind of left him behind and now he's here. What the hell? And that felt exactly like that scene to me, except like it felt more earned in this because the people that said no to risking their lives show up. And you get this impression that this young man who has never seen war managed to tell them something that made them change their mind. And it feels kind of believable. Kind of not, but kind of believable. You're willing to ride it because the orchestra is telling you to. And they force Godzilla up in a scene that genuinely feels a little bit less believable than the rest, but the music is running and the action is happening and you're like, yes, we can do this, even though I'm not in the movie. And I thought that was so cool.
There's like a...
But yes, the plan did feel a little bit like, guys, are you not remembering that he comes from the deep? But I want to talk specifically about Koichi and the thing that would have annoyed me. There was a scene that annoyed me, just one.
Uh-huh.
The thing that annoys me is not when a character has flaws. The thing that annoys me is when the flaws are so unbelievable that you can't imagine a human having them.
Okay.
And there's one scene where it feels like because the writers needed stuff to happen, it happened. Well, kind of two, but the other one is believable. So the scene I'm talking about is after our Oishi falls out of the train and comes out of the water and returns to Ginza. It turns out that Koichi actually saw Godzilla was coming. This is his third time experiencing Godzilla. So unlike everyone else, he's not freaking out. He's still afraid. He's still terrified. But he runs into Ginza and he finds Noriko, which is a little bit shaky because everyone's panicking, there's no order, and there's like thousands of people in Ginza. But sure, let's handwave that he finds Noriko. I'm willing to accept that. He pulls her out of that area because he's thinking more clearly than everyone else. He's more active and ready. Everyone else is in shell shock. What the F is this giant lizard? What's going on? And then there's a scene where it cuts to them. They're both standing there looking at Godzilla. And a giant shockwave is coming towards them, and only Noriko reacts and pushes Koichi into the alleyway that they are like not a foot from. They are almost half covered by it at the beginning of the scene.
Sure.
Just so that she can get blown away in front of him.
Right.
And,
And you're saying he should have reacted?
I'm saying he should have reacted.
I think
this is not the first time he's seen that, and also this is the third time he's seen Godzilla. And also he acted. That like the growth was that he went out there to go get her.
No, I get that. But it was telegraphed twice before that he freezes. That's like part of his like character arc, right? Is that he doesn't shoot Godzilla and he sort of shakes and like can't move.
I mean, in both of those scenes, he freezes in the beginning and then acts. In this one, he must have frozen when he saw Godzilla attacking, but he still went out there. He looked at Godzilla, grabbed her, and ran away with her.
Right.
The freeze happened in a time when it didn't make sense for it to happen, if that makes sense. But it had to happen so that Noriko could get blown away.
Yeah.
So it felt like the story changed our character for that one scene, and that bugged me.
I gotta say,
but other than
that is a well put together little Japanese lady if she can survive that nuclear shockwave.
Did you see the bloody terrain got pulled away?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, she's super dead. I was actually concerned that Koichi was going to get messed up because it looked like the building he was hiding behind was getting sucked away. But handwave, we need our main character to live. We can't let him die. Yeah, so this indestructible alleyway protects our boy. And then at the end of the movie, it turns out she survived. So I was
very badly injured, obviously, but
I was happy about it, despite the sheer force of the attack that they showed us. Like it didn't make logical sense, but you want that happy ending in case we never get another movie.
Absolutely.
And I approve that she lived, but I am like confused why the neighbor went to the ship to go get our boy instead of going to the hospital to take the daughter to the mother.
I don't know either. I lost my train of thought. But I wanted to say earlier, like when what's his name? Shiro, I think. Shiro, yeah. Goes and fetches all the tugboats.
Oh, the young
There's
boy,
like
yeah,
a group emotion that I don't know what it would be in English, but ichidanketsu would be the Japanese, where it's like everyone coming together for like one objective
one
kind of thing. And
Yes, yeah.
that's kind of, I think, what that scene is getting at. Like, you're getting the former military and then, like, all the civilian people, everyone, like, pooling together what, like, almost no resources they have left. Because, for some reason, the United States will not do anything about this.
The United States has its hands tied because if it deploys military forces, Russia will deploy military forces.
Well, yeah, they said there would be an escalation in some way. I fail to see in this time period, which is 1956, I think, in the movie, if it happens over the course of like 2 years or whatever.
Well, if we're talking about realism, or like in the modern world kind of thing, what would have actually happened if a giant lizard attacked Tokyo is that the Americans would have filmed it and sold it for 50 cents a reel. They would not have given them their warships back. There was some heavy hatred towards the
Sure.
Axis.
No, I get that.
They would
right?
never have helped them.
But in reality, like, there were military bases in Tokyo with Americans in them, They would have done something about that. One imagines, one hopes.
Yes, left.
I don't know. Okay, maybe.
They were unwilling to help Japan. They had just dropped bombs on them. They needed them to not be humans so that the rest of the world didn't condemn them for their actions.
Okay, I mean, that I'm not going to argue that point. I kind of think they might have nuked Godzilla a little bit more or something, Which probably would have made him angrier.
The rest of the world was saying that they're not allowed to use nukes anymore. That's a
But,
horror that needs to be packed away.
okay, it's 1956. You can tell America what to do at that point. No, 1946 even, right?
46, yeah.
Just nukes. No one at that point in the world could stand up to anything that America could throw at them. So I'm not sure what they were scared of the Soviet Union for at that point. It doesn't really make sense to me. Obviously, what it does is it conveys like you're all alone. Not even the Japanese government was willing to do anything. They were willing to like give them some old ships, seemingly somehow, but they weren't willing to take any.
The UN gave them their old ships back.
Well, no, the UN gave the battleship back, and then the general negotiated somehow to get those other 4 ships back from something. I can't remember what that was from.
Yeah.
But so the Japanese government is like portrayed as like incompetent and like paralyzed.
There's like 3 or 4 scenes where they were talking about how the Japanese government was too willing to throw people away. So us, the civilians, need to protect each other.
And more than happy to suppress information and all that sort of like wonderful stuff. And then the Americans are portrayed as uncaring and the Soviets as like super aggressive. And then Godzilla is this like typhoon nuclear force of nature that is coming to destroy Japan from
Doesn't care
from
about
inside.
people. It's just here to do its thing.
Exactly. Well, no, I don't know. Did you think Godzilla, was like a dumb monster, or do you think he was like getting revenge for being nuked?
I think he was raging.
Yeah.
It's just a very angry
Felt
monster.
Like, I didn't feel like there was a specific plan. I think its purpose was to rage. But I don't feel like it was doing it specifically to kill humans. I genuinely feel like it was there to stamp out some ground for itself. I don't know why. I feel like when they mentioned that it was territorial and just acting on instinct, I kind of bought into that.
Oh, did you?
But those were words that Noda said, and he had less clue than most. So
he was a scientist. I don't know what he knew about lizards, but he's a scientist, so he knows everything, right? That's how it works.
I feel like in these movies, when the scientist says things, it's the director telling the audience what he thinks. So
Probably.
I tend towards accepting the Noda theory that he just considers Tokyo part of his territory.
But
He's going to come mess shit up.
I
And
think
it's
they
not
needed-
like I hate humans.
I think they needed a convenient reason why Tokyo specifically out of all of
Would
that
get
area.
attacked.
I think that it was very much Deus Ex Machina. You know, like this is the MacGuffin reason we're deploying, so that there's some predictability in where this beast is going. Not predictable enough to make like a full out plan, but predictable enough to know that lots of people are gonna, you know, eat the dust.
And just to point out, like, I mean, Godzilla was always attacking human objects throughout the film. It wasn't like he was hunting whales in his spare time or
Well, we
anything
don't know
like
that,
that.
because we only got reports from humans about it. We don't know what he did in the in-betweens.
I guess so. But, I mean...
It's not like the whales are going to call up and be like, yo, Godzilla's here messing shit up.
But you know, like, I mean, an animal doesn't really care about like things that aren't a threat to them usually, right? So, I mean, why was he attacking tugboats and things? They're not like something he can eat. There did seem to be like a malevolent streak to him. He enjoyed hunting for fun, and that's kind of what makes him like a monster instead of just an animal, in my opinion. There's like a little bit like more there going on in the mind.
He was there to cause harm,
Yeah.
not to just exist. Yeah.
Again, like the feeling I got was that it's sort of nature's like the almost the embodiment of nature's rage against human activity, right? That's the like sub message to it. The feeling that I got from Godzilla itself wasn't so much malevolent as it was just pure rage at anything man-made and constructed.
Maybe he's just got a really good memory.
Maybe.
And he thought he had
Maybe
killed
you're right.
Koichi, and he
Yeah.
realized on the tugboat that he was wrong and he had missed one.
You can't let one go.
Yeah, and so
Can't.
he had to
No
destroy
witnesses.
Tokyo. He had no
Yeah,
choice.
No witnesses.
No
No
witnesses,
witnesses.
guys. That's right.
Yeah.
As a side note, how did you guys feel about the cancer thing at the end?
Cancer? Oh, what cancer thing?
So Noriko, when she's hugging
the wound.
Koichi in the bed,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the little
she has a
black-
growing black mass on the bottom of her neck, and
Yeah.
it's kind of pulsing, suggesting it's more Godzilla than like natural.
Yeah.
And you can sort of see that it then flips over to the cell mass that's pulsing in the exact same way, and then Godzilla starts to grow again. So it implies that Godzilla spread his stuff out, or his breath causes an infection of people.
I wouldn't read too much into that necessarily, unless we get a sequel. I
A
think.
sequel. Well, I mean, it would have cost a fair amount of cash to put a CG tumor on someone. So it's purposeful and
about that.
intended.
So yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely there. I remember seeing that as well. I don't know what it would be, and unless I missed something in the film, which is completely possible, you know, there's just no like sort of telling just from this movie in isolation what it could be.
Mm.
It could be, you know, I mean, like let's be honest, you know, everyone who was there at like ground zero that survived is probably going to die horrifically in 5 years from radiation-induced cancer. But
Just because this thing is gone
could
doesn't
be,
mean its
it
effects
could
are
be
gone.
that kind of message that, you know, the effects of these things like they're not over in the initial catastrophic event, but it's like even worse than that, and that it persists thereafter. Could be that, or it could be like, as you're saying, maybe this is like human kaiju Godzilla in the making for future
Well,
endeavors.
I do think Yesh is right. I mean, being thrown back through a couple of buildings is probably going to leave a bunch of gnarly scars on anyone.
Well, this
maybe
was shown-
how did she survive, right?
Yeah.
Maybe this is.
But I do want to say this was shown specifically as like spreading through her actively in that scene. So it's not just that she has a scar or something. It's an active infection.
Maybe it's going to give her Godzilla sense in the next movie, and she'll be the one
Yeah.
who's like,
The ability to talk to Godzilla.
yes,
Godzilla
that's how we
considers
get.
her his bride.
That's how we get Godzuki, and then we can have teenage Godzilla.
And if it gives her regeneration power, she can like be double fridged. That's like super useful.
And maybe she can grow to 50 feet and fight Godzilla.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Or
know.
it's a giant theme of holding. Godzilla NPR'd her before he got
Yes.
there.
Oh my!
Stop making me bleep you!
Now Chris has to edit this specific piece. Quickly, look at the time, Chris. Look at the
Hey,
time.
it is part of the culture.
I mean, I think it's
Literary exists
all
for a
culture.
reason.
Yeah, it does indeed.
Yeah, exclusively for housewives. You're correct, Josh. And therefore, this would be applicable. Although they're not married in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. They're just friends.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, Yash.
Oh, that'll be the movie's name, The Bride of Godzilla. And they'll be
That's
trying
what
to
I
get
was saying.
married. Yeah, you're right.
If you wanted it,
Yeah.
you should have put a ring on it. Godzilla got there first.
Well, and it'll be all the surviving population gets like that mark. And, like all of your ladies are mine. Sorry.
Well, in a lot of
Fair.
the Godzilla stuff, he has psionic powers. So I guess maybe that would be something. But that being said, this Godzilla was thoroughly destroyed, right?
Pure physical force, yeah.
Yeah, I mean his brain was disintegrated, and there was just a bunch of meat
And
that survived.
his own heat breath was shown to disintegrate his own body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whichever Godzilla comes next, it's not going to really remember what happened, one imagines. But okay, that'll do for Godzilla -1. Excellent movie. Make sure to go see it if you haven't seen it. It might be, by the time this comes out in a week, the highest grossing Japanese movie of all time.
And see it in cinemas. I think it's worth seeing in cinemas. It's the kind of movie that does well.
Absolutely.
Big
Oh.
screen, big sound.
Oh, when we went to see it, Yosh, there was a lady with her son in the theater, and she, as soon as we came into the theater, she was like, "Don't tell him what movie we're watching. It's a surprise."
Oh, that's perfect.
And
That's
I was,
incredible.
he was like 13, 14, the kid. And I was like, "Are you sure you know what type of movie this is, lady? It's not going to be your happy Godzilla monster film that you're used to, I think.
That's
A
the
little
silly
darker."
action movie, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, that'll do it for this week. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.